Hi, this is Venus DeMilo Thomas. You're listening to Deeper Than Music.
Deeper Than Music Radio. Behind every great song is a greater story.
Deeper than music. The core of you, the fans, the truth. It's deeper than music. Deeper than music. Simply the truth is the latest, the newest. It's deeper than music. Deeper than music. The core of you, the fans, the truth. It's deeper than music. Deeper than music. Simply the truth is the latest, the newest. It's deeper than music.
Deeper Than Music Radio. Behind every great song, there's an even greater story. I'd like to say what's up to everybody listening to us on Audible, Amazon Alexa, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, and all the great platforms that this show is streamed on. Today we have a special guest, and I like to say he's one of the people I like the term that gets busy. This guy is from Dodge City, Kansas. He's an award-winning filmmaker. He also has he's owned and operated several film distribution and production companies since 2007. The man gets busy. And then also he's an MC as well with a couple albums under his belt, MC Dirty D. Ladies and gentlemen, we have Dustin Ferguson here on Deeper Than Music. Dustin, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks a lot for having me on.
Man, and you do so much, man. Like, wow. I guess my first question is, and I noticed that you specialize in horror. Yeah. I actually just saw the latest and greatest Candyman, and man, the first one. I mean, it was on par with the first ones, but I always like to ask, like, I always wondered, what did man, I can't think of his name, but he's behind like it. Stephen King, like, what kind of bedtime stories does he tell his kids? Like, did you always know from the beginning, at an early age, did you know that you wanted to be a filmmaker, and did you always know that you wanted to do like horror movies? Was there like were you the type of kid like in school that the horror guy?
Oh yeah, without a doubt. I mean, I did know at a really young age. I think it was around 5th grade, I told my mom that I wanted to make scary movies when I grew up, because I actually wrote a 2-page script in 5th grade for Child's Play 4. And wow. My teacher was so impressed with it, he showed my mom at parent-teacher conferences, and that's kind of where it all started. And so yeah, I always had a big passion for horror. I collected horror movies growing up. I was kind of an outcast kid. So, I grew up kind of watching those types of films and stuff, being a bit of a loner, and I just grew into it creatively and started with editing and then kind of making my own shorts. And now here I am 115 movies later in California.
Wow. And I remember this magazine when because we were around the same age. Was it Fangoria or something?
Yeah,
like that?
Fangoria.
Yeah, Fangoria. Okay, yeah, I had a friend that had those magazines. I was like, oh my goodness, this is crazy. And I gotta ask you, like as far as filmmaking, making horror movies, like who inspires you as far as in the industry?
I'm kind of an old school guy. I grew up in the 80s and 90s, so I'm really inspired by that era. Like people like John Carpenter, and like you mentioned, Stephen King is a big influence. People really of that time. I'm in this weird generation where I'm not really a millennial, but I'm not like the Gen Xers before it. I'm like that weird group in between. So I kind of have have a modern sensibility with like old school flavor. So I like to take ideas and themes that were classic, like slasher movies and monster movies, but do them in sort of like a modern way. And I've really found like a niche doing that, especially during the pandemic, doing a lot of like low budget, sort of like high concept films is kind of where I found my footing.
Yeah. And you know what's interesting? The one thing that stood out to me with the new Candyman, it was scary, but the cinematography was like, I'm like, man, the cinematography is real good.
I love it.
Yeah, it was a good movie. Since you do horror, and we kind of come from, well, actually, you were born in 82. I want to ask you, like, what did you think as far as like filmmaking? What did you think of Michael Jackson's Thriller?
Oh, I love Michael Jackson's Thriller. I watch it every year.
Okay. The reason why I asked, because I was like doing some research on Thriller. This is what made him big. It was a music video, but it was horror, you know what I mean? And then if on the outside, like, it's classic, But then when you think about it, it's like, wait a minute, this is horror. But he did. I mean, it worked though. It worked. It was brilliant.
Yeah, the guy that actually directed that thriller video directed American Werewolf in London, and so he's really big in the horror scene. So I think that's why it worked. He was a prolific '80s horror director. It was good timing.
John Landis, yeah, and I noticed his trademark was always "See you next Wednesday." In a lot of his movies. So, and I want to circle back to you being a kid and being into horror. Like, how were you received in school? Like, being the horror guy,
the nerd, the weirdo, you know, the unpopular one. Like, it's one of those kind of typical situations where I definitely would admit that I was the ugly duckling growing up. We were lower income, got clothes from, you know, Goodwill and Walmart, wasn't popular at all. And I think that I'm kind of grateful for having that upbringing because it made me a really humble person and made me understand the importance of the good things in life and really want to work hard for them. And so like I really had to go from like literally a trailer in Kansas to where I'm at in LA now because I wanted it that bad.
Mm-hmm. And then I imagine too, like being a loner, your imagination carried you. So you had a lot of time to like develop and nurture this talent that you have.
Yeah, definitely. You know, it's got like a lot of pros and cons. It's like, I think that it's allowed me to, I guess, grow into a really creative person. But at the same time and I see this as a thing with other like celebrities and directors and stuff, I have this real need for validation now all the time. You know, it's like, I think that's common with people in this industry because I grew up never getting that, never feeling like I was worthy or important or anybody was paying attention. And now that they are, it's like, you know, you want that, you need that just to feel normal now.
Mm. And I take it like your family, they nurtured the talent that you had.
It's interesting. I think, again, it's sort of typical with everybody in this industry. Where in the very, very beginning, sure, you know, like I had a very caring and loving family, but I also come from a broken home. My mom's been married 6 times. You know, I was emancipated when I was 17. So I've been alone since then, having to kind of fend for myself. And pretty much since then, it's, you know, we've drifted apart. Now I've been out in California for 4 years and I haven't seen any family except for my sister that just moved here a month ago. And we're very disconnected now because I think that that's something that's common with people from outside of this space. Like I come from the Midwest where things are a typical way and people have a certain kind of life. And then I think when people leave that and achieve success, there's natural resentment and jealousy and animosity that comes with that. And unfortunately, that's part of my situation too.
Yeah, you know, you bring up something. Yeah, I can see that because I'm actually I'm originally from San Antonio, Texas. I'm a creative soul like yourself. And I always felt like, you know, isolated, you know, people were into like the typical thing was football, sports. I was into music, you know, music carried me. And then even when things got bad, you know, I had my keyboards, my production studio, but I always felt like different. I lived in California as well. Done the music thing, had a couple placements, you know, been in small roles in indie movies. But like you said, like in California and where I come from in Texas, like it's always, California is weird. People are, you know.
Yeah, everybody warns you against it.
Yeah, exactly. So I get exactly what you're talking about. What was that moment? Like, what was that moment you knew, like we mentioned MJ, like I grew up, I'll say it, I was born in the late 70s, 78, and I got to witness as a kid Michael Mania at his peak, and that's when I knew, like, man, I want to do music, I want to break dance, you know, it opened the doors to hip hop. What was that moment for you, like, yo, I love this is what I want to do?
I feel like it was pretty early on because my parents, they had horror films that they introduced me to. Like the first one I saw was actually Night of the Living Dead. And then we watched Alice, Sweet Alice and Psychomania. And I think that it was kind of then when I saw the effects a film could have on a person. I liked seeing people react to it and that like someone was in control of that emotion. I think I understood that really early on, that I wanted to then provide some sort of entertainment or get some sort of interaction from people out of what I'm doing. And I think that just kind of grew because like when I was younger, when I was into music as a teenager, I was into like Marilyn Manson and Nine Inch Nails and White Zombie. So I was into controversy and I loved, you know, the banned music videos that couldn't show on TV and the X-rated cuts of movies. And so I feel like I'm always been about evoking a reaction from somebody that's healthy and creative.
You know, as you were talking earlier, I thought about Marilyn Manson. So I'm glad you said that. It didn't like Rob Zombie and wow. Yeah. So what was so you come from this, like you said, you come from humble beginnings, and now like, you're doing music, you're doing just the awesome work with your filmmaking. What was the genesis like? What was the big move? Like, what was like, basically the genesis. How did we go from Kansas to now where you are?
I think it was just, like everything, it's always this crazy series of events that happens. And, I mentioned like the broken home and kind of the rough upbringing. I think that really played a part in it because I ended up on my own when I was 17. And so I was at a really early age where I had to figure out what I wanted to do with my life, because I was now suddenly I could call myself into school and I did, because I was an irresponsible 17-year-old, you know what I mean? Like I had to figure out how to pay my rent and get a full-time job. And I think that really played a big part in me figuring out that I wanted to have something better in life. I wanted something better than this, than just trying to scrape by and being stressed out paying my bills and being, a nobody, essentially, not meaning anything to myself. And I had this strong passion, so I started, of course, working 3-day jobs while doing films on the side. And it wasn't until 2017 when I was doing my 50th film and I was in Nebraska. And it was like a literal epiphany one day on set. It just hit me. I was like, what am I doing here? Like, this is my 50th movie and I can't go any further here because I'm in the middle of nowhere. I was like, I have to go to LA. This is seriously what I'm gonna do the rest of my life. It's very obvious at this point. I should just do it. And then within 6 months, I was there.
Wow. And how was that coming from the Midwest? Was it just like culture shock, or you just like, I'm gonna make this happen?
You kind of get in that mode, like tunnel vision. We're just like, you're pushing through no matter what, because it was a sort of a mess for us because we got scammed on our first house before I came out here. It was done on Craigslist, and we had found this place in another town. And about a week before moving out here, I had a 2-story house that had 4 bedrooms, really nice place in Nebraska that I had given up to come out here. And so we found this place online, me and my partner. And about a week prior, we hadn't been hearing from the landlord, and we already spent about $6,000 in fees and payments to him on the internet. And so I was kind of getting a sinking feeling. And so I just randomly did a Google search on the guy. And that day he had been arrested for scamming people on houses.
Wow.
So I was just like, oh no, what am I gonna do? Like, I don't have anywhere to go. And we already got rid of our house and our belongings. We have to be out of here in a week. And so within a week, I put out a call on Facebook. I'm asking people I knew out here, do you know anybody with a place? Oh my goodness. And we found this guy that was selling his condo that agreed to rent it to me last minute so I would have somewhere to go. And I've been here for the last 4 years.
Wow, that's the grace of God right there, because something like that would literally just break a person, right?
Yeah, I mean, there was like the day that happened, and I cried myself to sleep. I'm like, my life's over. I just screwed everything up. I gave up so many things. And then, you just keep pushing. You're like, no, I'm not going to let that happen. I'm not going to give up. That's not an option. And so I didn't, and I got this place. And I've sort of had that mentality since then that like, if I decided to give up everything and come out here, I was not going to take failure as an option. Not even on the plate. Like, I've already given up so much. I've changed so much of my life that it's just has to work out. So, you work extra hard to make sure that happens.
Wow. And what was being there? What would you say was your breakthrough moment?
Like as a filmmaker in Nebraska?
As in LA, like the moment, like, man, okay, things are starting to pan out and work.
It was interesting because, I did have the situation where I was able to show up here with 50 movies under my belt. And that really helped because I could come right in and be like, well, here's my experience. I'm not some young kid from Nebraska that's clueless. I actually have some experience. So I was able to get like some editing gigs, and I worked on a movie for Akie Long called Chinaman's Chance that starred Coolio and Ernest Borgnine and like a whole Teresa Russell, a bunch of people. And that was sort of my first big gig out here. And then after that, it just snowballed. I got to work on Full Moon's Puppet Master movie, their newest movie. I directed scenes for the new Killer Tomatoes. And things have just kept growing since then. And like I said, during the pandemic, things were starting to slowly rise for me. And then I had all these plans for 2020, like everybody. And then the pandemic happened and I had to completely reinvent what I was doing because it was nearly impossible to make movies. You know, you could only film outside, you had to socially distance, you could have one or two people. It was horrible. And so I figured out a way to start making these movies like that were mostly outdoors, filmed with just a couple actors. Ended up making 16 movies in 2020 and my career took off.
Wow. And I like how you said, there's two things that I like that you said. So you already had a portfolio. You already had, like, look, this is my work. This is my catalog. Yeah. People were receptive to that. I like to think that because of social media and because of the advancements in technology, a lot of people think it's that instant popcorn success overnight. And it's like, no, you have to have a body of work that speaks for you. So you speak to that. And then also one of my questions you already answered, how did the pandemic affect you? Because we know Hollywood, I'm still waiting for Top Gun Maverick to come out, but we know in the beginning, Hollywood came to a standstill and it was time for survivors like yourself to adapt and overcome. And it sounds like you did that instantly.
Well, and that's, you know, and it's funny because Joe Williamson, my manager, got a shout out to Joe. He told me an interesting kind of anecdote while I was doing that, you know, during World War II, movies were the only escape that people had from the harsh realities of life. Somebody had to provide entertainment as like an escape for people. And in 2020, there was a 2 or 3 month period there where absolutely not a single person in the world was making a movie except me. I made a movie a month during that time. And because of that, those movies ended up going viral. They got a lot of attention on the horror sites because news was, you know, slow. So they got extra attention. And then it really worked in my favor where, because I worked so hard during that time to not give up, that's when I took off. Wow. Yeah, because it was like, I was at the Suwon Oscar Gala in February. And then after that, everything went downhill. And it's just, and God willing, we'll get out of this. But I think what it did was shifted the business model for Hollywood, shifted the model for entertainment. And it took innovators like yourself to bring forth, it put a spotlight on you because, I mean, once the big studios, I mean, I was thinking like Hollywood's gone. I was thinking like movie theaters would be a thing of the past, but we all adapted and overcome. And then I also see that you have a good business sense as well because you owned several distribution companies, if I'm not correct. Yeah, and a video store. Wow. How did that happen? Well, yeah, I went to school, you know, I despite what happened to me in high school, I ended up going to college for business management and got my degree in entrepreneurship, an associate's degree. This was in the early 2000s, like 2001 to 3. And at the time, my business plan was to open a video store because I grew up in that era. I wanted to open a new video store. I'd been collecting thousands of movies at this point. That was going to be sort of my launch catalog. And so I did a business plan. I got an A on it, but my instructor told me it wasn't wise to do because that was when everybody was closing. That was when the video stores were going out of business. And sort of at that point after going through college, my dreams were shot. And so I ended up going and working as a manager at Papa John's and doing that whole thing, working at pizza places. And then I gradually started doing the movie stuff on the side until that just completely took over. And so there definitely was like, I feel like it was always going to happen. You know, every step, everything that went off to the side where I thought it wasn't going to happen was so that it would happen. Because now here I am today doing what I'm doing. Yeah. And you remind me, you say video store, the story of Blockbuster, Netflix coming to Blockbuster and they're kind of laughing. And now look, I think right now with the Emmys, like most streaming services won the most Emmys, your Netflixes and stuff like that. Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah. And like you said, it's about adapting. Yeah. And I guess, what I was saying before, like I eventually did open the store, but not until 2017, because at that point it was retro, like record shops. Yeah. And so I could have this like niche market of like, ooh, come, it was called old school video. So I'm like, come have this old school experience. You could rent VHS tapes here and DVDs and video games. And I did that for about 11 months. And one of my regular customers, who was also a movie poster supplier there, ended up buying the store for me and all of the inventory so I could use that to move to California. So it's like, actually, it all came full circle. Like, I thought I was going to go to the video store thing, and then that wasn't supposed to work out because this actually was. And so that's what got me here.
And then you also some film distribution and production companies as well since 2007.
Yeah. Well, because doing the indie thing, it's like the first stuff I did, I would say the first 3 movies, I literally was selling out of the trunk of my car. I was having these like local premieres at this like rundown theater in Lincoln, Nebraska. And then afterwards, people could buy a copy of the movie out of the trunk of my car. And so then I started doing it online with like, free websites and stuff. And I was like, God, I should make like a label. I'm like actually selling all my content now. And so I started doing branding with stuff. Like my first company was RHR Home Video. And then that transitioned to 42nd Street Films when I started getting budgets and working with like name talent. And then when I came out to California, it was Sinister Studios, which then changed to SoCal Cinema Studios. And now that's been abbreviated to SCS Entertainment. And all of them are LLCs. And I guess SCS Entertainment is what we're currently called now. That's the final one.
Wow. So you've done all this grassroots, do for self, move to California. And I just imagine that being that hands-on is like, the industry. So, because I mean, we all assume that, hey, with the movies, it's an idea and bam, it gets made. But no, you have to find distribution. You have to, it's a process within itself.
It is. And even now it's like, now I've got this interesting mix where, because doing that for years, that's how you make the contacts. That's how you make friends in distribution. And so now I'm in a really good place where half of the work I do in the year is work for hire for a particular distributor, Wild Eye Releasing. And then that gives me the extra money in between to then fund my passion projects I can distribute myself. So then it all adds up to just more money.
Wow. And there you have it. And now in the digital age, before, I remember people had the big camcorders, right? And now you can do it on your phone. And now we got, like, for example, with music, I'll take this podcast, for example. It's on Audible, it's on Audacity. It's technology works to our advantage. So I want to ask you, starting grassroots earlier on, you've seen the transition, and has it worked to your benefit?
Yes.
And how much has changed since your beginning?
I feel like I've kind of seen the whole transition. When I was a kid, there was still beta tapes and VHS, and people were filming on that. And now, like you said, people are shooting on their phones. And so I've seen that whole wave. And the reason I'm still here is because I did adapt. Every time, you got to get on top of technology, because people are fickle and they're always in the now. And if you're doing something dated, you start to lose people the further, you go back. I see it happen with the filmmakers before me, from the generation before me. They never quite got onto the digital age. So their popularity is not there anymore. Their movies aren't selling as well, and their career's starting to come to an end. And the only way to stay relevant is to stay modern and relevant. And so I've done that from anywhere from shooting on video to shooting on high 8 tapes, to shooting now on, we use actually a Samsung S21 to shoot like current movies because it shoots in 4K. It's better than the last camera I had.
Yeah, and then they say they were talking about this. The new iPhone has a cinema mode where it does like portrait for the videos. I was like, man, that is crazy.
It's come so far, and it goes further quicker and quicker too. Technology is advancing so much faster the more it advances, and it's hard to keep up with, but you really got to if you want to stay relevant.
Oh yeah, you have to. It kind of reminds me of that movie Boogie Nights, how the guy that got Mark Wahlberg into that industry, he didn't adapt. So that whole way of, and then you directed a whole bunch of music videos as well.
Oh, yes, I did. I'm surprised you knew that because they're not even on my IMDb.
So now we'll transition to the music. MC Dirty D. Tell me about the name. I got to know about the name.
Okay, it's so funny because, the name Dirty D was a pet name at work I had for I worked at this place called Open Harvest. It's like a Whole Foods. I was the deli manager there for forever. And a lot of the people just jokingly, because at least at the time, was very timid and soft spoken. So it was almost like a joke to be like, yo, it's Dirty D in the house. Like people were almost, it's like a term of endearment. And that ended up kind of sticking with me as a nickname. And then, you know, as you mentioned, the music videos, as I was directing music videos, I started working with this German breakdance artist named E-Rocker, and I was directing his videos. And I asked him once, he's like, you know, I'm really interested in this breakdance style of music. If I ever wrote and recorded my own vocals, would you be interested in doing a song together? He agreed. We ended up doing an EP together where I took on the name Dirty D. We did 3 EPs together in total. We worked with Egyptian Lover and a few other names sort of in the breakdance.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay,
Egyptian Lover
yo.
actually remixed one of my singles. And then at that point, I moved to California and I took on MC Dirty D because I transitioned more to rap. And that was merely just the lifestyle change, you know, like the different culture here really influenced that.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and now you got me thinking about Beat Street, and then on the West Coast they had Breaking 1 and 2.
Oh yeah.
So
I love all
and
that stuff.
that's how I got into hip hop, was first breakdance and then being a b-boy, and then eventually
Yeah, me too.
Right.
See, same.
writing rhymes. So on the music side, who are your influences musically?
So with the rap music, it's a lot more modern. Asian Doll, Cuban Doll, Rennie Rucci, Bad Baby, Whoa Vicky. I like a lot of the like contemporary sort of Instagram spawned rap music. I think it's very in the now. I think it's fresh. I like what really appeals to me about it is that it's used as a healthy way to vent your frustrations in life and the things that you want to talk about. And I'm in a position with my film career where I have to be very careful what I put out there. Like on Facebook, I have to have a certain kind of image. I have to be presentable and professional. And so the rap music for me serves as my outlet to vent my frustrations, to talk about, you know, like obviously a lot of the people that are in rap music do it to talk about, you know, their upbringing, what they've been through in life, their hardships and everything. And while I can't identify with those particular hardships, like I mentioned before, I had a terrible upbringing all my own that I can relate to in a different way with my music, where I can talk about how I came from those parts, you know?
You know, you bring up something, because my fiance, she's from Westboro, Missouri. And we were talking about, and I'm from San Antonio, but my family, the origins are from East Side San Antonio, which is very urban, and she's from rural. She comes from very humble beginnings. Like where she's from is like 161 people population, and we were talking about the difference between urban poverty and rural poverty. I went to go visit her home place, and that same energy was there. And like you said, with music, I mean, and I liken this to country music and hip hop music, because back then it was like you couldn't get me to listen to country music. But listening to the lyrics, I'm like, this is damn near the same thing as hip hop. It's about
the exact same with a different beat.
Exactly. And I like how you bridged the gap with that. But you took it first from filmmaking, and then it was like, okay, you gravitated to hip hop to express your struggles. And I just want to say, man, I applaud you, because you've come through a lot of stuff has happened, but you like motivated you to create your own enterprise. With that being said, say someone's listening to this interview and they aspire to be like Dustin Ferguson, what advice would you give them when navigating through or trying to build a career in this industry?
I would say the biggest piece of advice is to just not lose hope. You know, there's a lot of tough things happening, especially now in the world, you know, that could be discouraging or people think it's out of reach. But I'll be the first to say that if I can do it, absolutely anybody can. You just can't give up. You have to chase that goal.
Yeah. And then, so we talked about the past, the present. 2021 to 2022, what do we have to look forward to from Dustin Ferguson, aka also MC Dirty D?
Okay, well, a lot of movies, obviously. I'm working actively to join the Directors Guild, and so that's a bit of a process, you know, so I'm kind of going through that. Hopefully that happens by, 2022, 2023. And like I mentioned, I'm doing a lot of work with Wild Eye Releasing, so I have several more films slated with them. As far as the music goes, I am working on some stuff with Queen Bree. We're doing some collab stuff. We actually have a new single coming out in a couple weeks. So yeah, I'm just staying busy, just doing what I do, doing lots of it.
Awesome. And where can people catch you? This is shameless promotion time. Where can they catch you? Social medias and websites and things of that nature.
Yeah, on Instagram, I'm the only Dirty D. Literally, it's the only Dirty D. It's what the name is. And then on Facebook, it's just I have a regular public profile anybody can access. It's Dustin William Ferguson, and look for the blue check.
Awesome. And so we're going to close the show with 2 of his songs, so you guys can check out MC Dirty D. So I want you to give us the skinny on these 2 songs. So the first one that we'll close out actually with is Slide Into My DMs. Can you give us the 411 on that song?
Yeah, you know, that's a little bit tongue-in-cheek. It's sort of about how you rise to fame and then everybody wants to be your friend. And it's more obvious when they're doing it in the middle of the night because they don't even know who you are and they're coming from somewhere else. It was a song I did with Girlz N The Hood, who is a Bay Area all-female rap group. That was a big inspiration for me, so that was my collab with them.
Awesome. And then the next one we're going to play after that is Fresh Prince. What's the story of that? Is this featuring Will Smith? No, I'm just
obviously that was kind of an inspiration. It's sort of like where I'm at now. Like here I am in LA. I'm the Fresh Prince of the scene. I'm the up and coming filmmaker. I've taken the rap scene by storm. It's sort of just it's a playful, you know, sort of way of mocking and being a little cocky about what's going on in my life now.
Hey, you know what? Why not be cocky, man? You've accomplished so much and doing so much wonderful things. And again, thank you for being on the show. And ladies and gentlemen, this is Mark Furyus signing off with another great guest. And I call him, I call him one of the do-works. He does work and he gets busy. So we're signing off. Special guest Dustin Ferguson here on Deep in the Music.
I don't think like that. I think like if there's a reason for me to burn a bridge, then I obviously don't want to speak to you ever in my life. Now what I say, man, it's sketchy. Bouncing beat, Cali heat, meet and greet, have a seat. In my suite, keep it neat, no receipt. I'm discreet, from the street, all concrete, go retreat, kick a beat. I delete, obsolete, I'm elite, rinse repeat. Call me fresh, you a mess, in distress, my success. I'm possessed, in excess, in the press, call progress. Nevertheless, you protest this contest. I resist, like a game of fucking chess. Watch me rise by surprise, now they call me super size. Knock you down to the ground, toss you in the lost and found. Hear my name, go insane, can't contain all my fame. Working hard, left the hood, call me Prince of Hollywood. Now what I say, man, this guy can cook. Much thought goes into everything that I do. If I feel a certain way, then I'm gonna say it, I'm gonna express it. That's a rap while I rap, put my name on the map. Grab my app with a tap, jelly bitch, pop a cap. When I snap, then we'll scrap, I'm a lot. Till I rap, run the crap, travel flap. When I slap, I'll recap. Bouncing beat, Cali heat, meet and greet, have a seat. In my suite, keep it neat, no receipt. I'm discreet, from the street, all concrete, go retreat. Kick a beat, I delete, obsolete, I'm elite, rinse repeat. Call me fresh, you a mess, in distress, my success. I possess, in excess, in the press, call progress. Nevertheless, we protest this contest. I recess, like a game of fucking chess. Now what I say, man, this guy can cook. Watch me rise by surprise, down they call me super size. Knock you down to the ground, toss you in the lost and found. Hear my name, go insane, can't contain all my fame. Working hard, left the hood, call me Prince of Hollywood. I'm conscious of like every line that I write, making sure that everything is, you know, consistent.
Bitch, you all up in my DM. Slide into my DM, wide awake in the PM. You really wanna see him on my page till it AM. Dirty rhyme all the time, flying high on your dime. Bro, you sour like a lime, kiss my ass in the grind. Bloody knuckles in your face, silly bitch, you disgrace. Try and tell me it's no race, but I run at mile pace. Spinning bins on the candy, smoking weed cause it's handy. Running laps cause I can be winning fast, bro, you ain't me. Slide into my DM, wide awake in the PM. You really wanna see him on my page till it AM. FBI am IGDM, either way I still don't need him. Working hard, really hard, this game in Cali across the yard. Earn my name in my own place, post that shit laugh in your face. Jelly bitches lost this race, bro, I'm winning every race. Instant bitches making wishes cause they fake in the ditches. Busted bling, active scene, hate that bitch, know what I mean. Slide into my DM, wide awake in the PM. You really wanna see him on my page till it AM. The magic word from you, the burr, my rhymes are heard, bro, you are a nerd. Dropping beats, that's not you heard, now it's your turn, what you learn. Don't disappoint, I stay on point, I hit that shit, pass me the joint. Buzzing by, I'm not shy, you ask me why I say goodbye. Got my girls in the hood, drop that heat, burn up like wood. They charge a fee like Dirty D, jelly bitch, sit back and see.
no, y'all ain't talking cheese. Pop up on the feature, it's whatever, it's gon' cost a fee. All handouts, no bueno, it's gon' show who make your circle steep. I'm just being honest, I can't lie, ain't no foe to me. And this shit off the dome, I've been jacking for the time being. Widows wanna be seen on IG, based off fucking memes. Baking couch, selling dreams, in the booth, rolling weed.